Hi everyone and welcome to our webinar this afternoon this evening, this morning for different times for different people. So welcome, we are talking about classroom management and what that entails. I already see there are people from all over the world. I see from Bulgaria, from the UK, Florida, South Africa, Canada. So hi and welcome. My name is Lisa. I'm from a small town called Robinson, which is not far from Cape Town in South Africa. And it is very warm here. I'm sure it is different temperature all around the world. And we will get going soonish. So to start off with, we go through a couple of slides and discuss classroom management for half of the webinar time. And then for the second half, so the second half an hour, I will answer as many questions as possible. So we have a Q&A session. So once we have gone through the slides, then you are welcome to put in all of your questions and I will deal with them as best as I am capable of doing. So I have quite a few years of experience teaching children, adults, in person, online, all over the place. So let's go straight into our webinar about classroom management. Okay. Great. So, before you started teaching, if you're a new teacher, for many teachers, for all people who've been doing it for years or just starting out, this can be quite a daunting task. How do you deal with a whole classroom full of people and deal with their behavior and personalities? Often you think it's just teenagers that are going to be a problem. Often isn't. Teenagers can be absolutely fabulous. So they're not always the biggest problem. When it comes to classroom management, it's not necessarily the case. Any class could be a problem. So small kids, big kids, grown-ups that know better, it depends. So the key to a class is careful planning before and thought about what you want to achieve in your lesson and in your class. So plan beforehand and you will be prepared. It's the main thing. All right. So think about who you are teaching. So first off, very young learners, 4 to 5, can be potentially an issue. They often can't read, so their English might not be bad, but sometimes they don't have classroom skills yet. So they might know a little bit about the language, but they might also not know, as I say, how to read or how to write, or they're not used to being in a classroom and listening to a teacher. Young learners, 6 to 12. So that's primary school or junior school. And those kids generally know how lessons work and how school works, and makes it easier in many ways. And they often will have experience in classrooms, and also many of them can be very fluent. I've had a lot of students in that age group who have amazing fluency in their second or third language and speaking English. So you can't say that they won't know. They often do know a lot more than you expect. Teenagers, okay, then they're also tweens, sort of get that group, sort of 10, 11, 12 age, sort of fit in between. That can be a lot of fun. And then teenagers around 12, 13 to 16. As with young learners, there can be a wide variety in ability. So some can be quite fluent, some can be beginners. It really depends. You never know. It really depends. So teenagers are able to focus on tasks a bit longer than younger kids. Obviously, 4 to 5 years old, 20 to 25 minutes is probably the limit of how long you are going to be able to keep their attention. Young learners, 6 to 12, a primary school child, you can probably keep them focused for more than half an hour even. Teenagers, potentially for a longer period of time. But lessons still need to be engaging and varied. And teenagers often tend to be more self-conscious and so might be less willing to speak and try things. They might be far more shy. And even though you know their English is quite good, they might not want to speak in front of their friends, or if they are one-to-one class, be a small classroom. But classroom management in a big class or even one-to-one. So teenagers are often shy, and you have to really work hard to get them to take part. And adults can be anyone from 16 up. So 16, they're really adults. 16, 17, 18 up. And obviously you get young adults, sort of students, and then you get 20-year-olds and even older people. So depending on the institution. So if it's a school, the adults might be sort of 16 to 18, but if it's private lessons, you could get older adults of any age. All right. So it says here in my notes, adults can be false beginners. So sometimes an adult will have a lower level of English than a 5-year-old. So you never know. Again, it can vary completely. Adults often know why they're having less because they have decided to have a lesson, whereas children, it's often the parents that made them have a lesson. So there's also that dynamic to look at. So kids sometimes get forced to have English lessons, whereas adults will have different reasons. Maybe they are learning English because they're going to travel or they're doing it for a job. So different reasons. And adults tend to need to see things written down and need to be more confident before they're willing to say something. So adults can also be self-conscious, and adults can almost even apologize because they are not as fluent as they wish that they were. So those are different groups of students that you will encounter. Okay. Classroom rules. So now you have a group of 15 kids or 30, depends, and you need to decide what the rules are before you even start. You need to decide what you want to happen in your classroom, how the classroom is going to, how it's going to work, and which rules you need your students to follow. And other than just the rules, what tasks and activities will engage your students. So you need to prepare. You need to prepare the rules, you need to prepare the lessons. So that is before you start teaching. Okay. Then we have during the lesson. So we've now started teaching this lesson. Before, let's just say this is day 1. So before you even go further, get a classroom contract. So you with a new teacher, you need to get an understanding about how you would like your classroom to be run and how it needs to run, how you like the lesson to go. All right, talk about what you want to happen in your classroom, what behavior you will accept, what behavior you won't accept. You don't just think about the rules, think about the activities and tasks you're going to give your learners that will engage them. And put your rules up. You could also, especially with a group of kids, get the kids to come up with their own rules and write them up on the board. So then they're part of the whole rule-making activity. So you'd say what you can get their input from the beginning, get them to say what is important to them, what they would like from you even, what they expect from the teacher. So it can be a give and take that the rules that you are going to have in your classroom need to be decided on before you even start teaching. And it's a process. It's a long process. I'm just thinking, I'm so not good at this so often. I'm often not strict enough with kids. So you need to be strict enough. You need to know what you expect from the children and don't let them walk over you. This is speaking from one who knows, who has been walked over on occasion. All right. So, an example. Here is a good example of a set of rules that you will have with your class. So these will work for small kids, medium kids, big kids, or adults. And good things, so. But really think about this before. Before you even start, we must agree to respect each other. One of the most important things, that you respect the students and the students respect the teacher. Listening. The students need to listen to the teacher, and the teacher will listen to the students, and the students also need to listen to each other. So, raising hands to speak. Probably not with an adult class. If it's a class of 6 adults, you probably do not have to get them to raise their hands before they speak. But with a class of kids, it's definitely a rule that you can that you can work with. And even if this was an online class, you can get the virtual raise a hand. So it works for one-to-one classes and online classes as well. This is also relevant. So raising a hand to speak so that everyone listens to each other and hears each other. And now in this day and age, unfortunately, this is also a very important point, is you will not have accept any bullying or people laughing at anyone else in your class. And be strict about it, because it's not cool in any way. Then turn off phones. I just remembered, turn the phone off. Sometimes children must hand in their phones, make their phones silent. If it's adults, they probably get more calls, but you have to have phone rules. Otherwise it could be a nightmare. So definitely something to think about in your class. From the teacher's point of view, make sure that you have brought everything you need for the lesson, that you aren't faffing around looking, have I got my this? Do I need my this? So that you have to keep up your end of the rules and bargain as well. Okay, so that you know. And so rules for the teacher. You have to have your stuff. You have to know what you're doing. You have to have your lesson prepared. And that you know everyone's names, all that kind of thing. So the rules, it's give and take for everyone. And another lesson you might have for your students, they have to do their homework on time. There'll be all sorts of rules. They must listen. I'm just trying to think. Homework. Not all shout at once. If they are answered a question, they must answer. There are so many different things that you have to keep tabs on and keep track of in your lesson. All right. So those are some ideas to put in your contract and your set of rules before you start teaching. Obviously, the more you do it, the better you are at them. Okay. Now you're in the lesson. Be consistent. Your students, especially if they are older, they will understand very clearly if they think you are being fair or unfair. If they think you aren't being fair, they think you are being unfair, they will stop listening to you, potentially. And they will potentially also stop respecting you. So you need to be very, very open, clean and open and transparent in your rules. Stick to the agreed rules. Don't add extra ones. So not, I told you, and it's like, no, you never told the person. So stick to them. That's why if you did your rules right in the beginning and elicited them from the kids, then maybe have them written down and stuck up on the wall so that you can refer to them. These are the rules, and then everyone knows where they stand. So don't add extra ones. Okay. Don't change them or add to them. That's part of you being consistent. You can't suddenly come up with extra rules. All right. Another very important thing, use positive reinforcement. If you are forever telling the children, stop that, don't do that, don't, no, those are all terribly negative words. And then I just saw it. I was distracted by myself, just like one would be by a phone. And it says, how do we know that students don't use their phones in online lessons? We will come back to that question. Remind me. Don't. All right. So let's go back to the lesson though. Positive reinforcement. So as I said, if you get stuck in telling people what not to do all the time, it's counterproductive. It really is. I remember watching a program with some nanny who she was so good with kids, and some parents who could not deal with their children, and they were forever telling them what not to do. Whereas if you say, yes, do it this way, she was so clever. Instead of saying, don't do this, you say, would you like to do it this way or this way? And you give the students you give them a choice, because that makes them feel empowered, but you give them a choice of two things you want them to do. Part of being positive reinforcement. So, and give praise, and don't always harp on about negative things, because it can just get everyone down. All right. Think about a way to start and end the class. This is a thing that kids, especially little kids, but medium kids as well, they like to know that they're going to do this in the beginning, and then so they know how the lesson will run, how it begins, what they do in the middle of the class, and how it ends. It makes them feel comfortable and secure. I think everyone knows that a bit. So you decide we start with a bit of revision, or you start with a warmer, and then you have some new work, and then you have some freer practice, and at the end you go through everything in your plenary and end up maybe every time you sing a song. Can't imagine why you would. Or maybe there's a music, or you show a video at the beginning or a video at the end. But if you have a format to your class that you stick with, it's going to be easier to get the rules, to stick with the rules as well, so that your class runs in a nice, calm, clear way. All right, great. All right, slide 8. During the lesson. Okay. Don't make threats that you can't or won't carry out. Very good point. So just like when you stick to the same rules, you can't tell a student if you don't hand your homework in, I'll get you thrown out of the school, because that's probably not true. So don't make threats. So don't lie to your students. Don't make threats you can't or won't carry out. Be honest with them, and that's quite obvious. But I think in the heat of the moment, everyone has been known to exaggerate a little and say, that is the last time I hear, I will listen. Okay. So no point making a threat that you can't carry out. So for example, don't tell a student you'll have them removed from the school if you don't have the authority to do it, and if that's not how the school runs. Also, don't humiliate students. Even if they're being terribly naughty or misbehaved, if they're really, you can't handle them, say, I will speak to you later, and speak to the person in maybe out of the class, after the class, before the class, speak to someone else about the student. But it is never a teacher's place to humiliate a student and make them feel terrible. Obviously. Be fair. Treat everyone the same every single lesson. So just be aware of your own feelings. We can't all be cheerful all the time. Certainly not. But it's not the student's fault if you've had a bad day. You have to just suck it up and put on a smile. So every lesson you can say, I haven't had the best day, so let's be gentle with each other. Say that, but yeah, they don't really, it's not the student's job to take that on in any way. And as I said before, if they're having a particularly bad student, speak to the student separately. But that's also if the student is having a bad day, so that they don't get in the way of everyone else studying and learning. All right, so let's read through that. Student who is constantly having to, if you constantly have a student who is always naughty and always a problem, try and see what is the problem. Maybe speak to a superior, speak to the student if the student is that age, and you can sort of see if you can get to the bottom of what the problem is. But yeah, we all have issues. We all have issues, and we need to work our way around the issues and focus on the work and focus on the teaching, and not let all of those issues get in the way of the class. Okay, which is quite obvious, yet in the heat of the moment, not quite as much. And admit mistakes. If you've made a mistake, like I forgot my book at home, or you say something incorrectly. Maybe you just stumble over a word. Say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that. Or if you get confused by something, admit to it, because we are all human, and that will probably make the students even, they'll understand more and be happier to work with you. But if you make a mistake, there's no use trying to deny it. Just admit it. Say, I'm sorry. Okay. Once you've apologized, you can work through it, but just don't cover it up. that emoji with the monkey doing this, it's one of the most useful emojis. So just think that. All right. Give such a terrible example. Teachers. No, we all do make mistakes. We just smile and wave and get on with it. All right. Then this is all part of feedback, really. Feedback that you give to your students after a lesson, which is very important, and feedback to yourself as a teacher and to the class as a whole, really. So after each lesson, think what went well. Okay, there we go. So what went well? What worked in the lesson, or what didn't work? What was you hoped that this was going to be so intriguing and interesting to the students, and that didn't work at all. So sometimes you can get it wrong, or sometimes you think that it might be fun, and then it's a winner. So make notes, keep all of this. Think about how the lesson went. You want to keep a note of your thoughts to refer. So you've made a lesson. This one worked well. This one not so much. So keep notes. They're going to, when you come back to that lesson or come back to that class, all of those notes are going to be so important and so useful to you. Sometimes you have codes and okay, yes, this, and then you can come back to it. All right. If there was a task in which all students were fully engaged, why was that? What was it about the task that went well? If your students did everything that you asked, how did that happen? Why was it a successful one? And then on the flip side, when an activity did not go as planned, what happened then? So sometimes the task is not age appropriate. You think that it's a bit easy, or maybe it's too hard. So that kind of thing, those notes will be very, very important to you as a teacher going forward. That's just from the teacher's point of view and from your lesson point of view. Then from behavior, that's another section. So think about issues you had with a class. So think the class was great, but that child was just particularly bad. Why do you think that happened? Was he or she sitting in a different place? So keep notes of that as well. So think about issues you had with the class or individual students. Why did you have the issues? Was it an unusual thing for that student today? Maybe the student was good today and they aren't usually. So again, things to keep notes of so that you can refer back to it. And what could you have done differently or better? What could you have got the kids or students to do differently or better? So learning. Every lesson is not only something that you teach and is learned by the students, but as a teacher, you will learn in every single lesson what you have done well and can improve on. All right. Okay, and after the lesson, so now you're doing a recap. What would you change next time you teach that lesson? So, rather than simply blaming a bad class on bad students, start by thinking about what you did. So you are the adult, and you are in charge in the class, but so you have to demonstrate that you are in charge. You also have to let them know what you expect from the students. So what would you change? So as a teacher, what worked, what didn't work? It sort of just goes on from the point before. How will you do differently next time? Or would you do the same? What the kids worked with? Did the homework work? Did the grammar work? So just at the end of a class, after the lesson, make notes, think about it. And there, it says here, don't shout. Very, very good. Never shout at your students, because it just shows them that you have lost control, that you are no longer the adult, that you are now joining them in any bad behavior that there was. Shouting is never the answer, unfortunately. Even if you have a big voice and like to raise it, it's never the answer. So, not a good idea. All right. So, if you're really having difficulties with the class, really ask for help. If there are truly problematic students that are, they never listen, or they never do their homework, or they are absent every second class, ask for help. They might be in contact with the parents, or they might have more information. You can't do everything on your own. There will be someone else who knows more and who can help you. So if you have any issues and you work for a school, don't be afraid to speak to, the principal of the school, or maybe some of your colleagues. Yeah, online teachers often have their own WhatsApp group that they can chat and go through notes and go, what do you do with this group, or what do you do? So speak to people. You're not alone. You're always part of a group, and there's someone, unless you literally are a self-employed teacher. Other than that, scenario, which is not the most common of scenarios, one can generally speak to someone else. You might feel you're the only person to ever have had these problems with some particular students, but usually talk to other teachers. You're like, oh, they had that exact problem with someone else. So often, what you think is an insurmountable problem is something that other people have already dealt with and deal with every day, and you might be able to get advice and help. You might be able to offer you solutions or some other ideas. So work together. Work together. Obviously, if you're at a whole school, go to the staff room, chat. Say, how am I going to deal with these grade 8s, or whatever the case may be. Or if you are teaching online and you work in a school, so always ask for advice. Okay. I think I might have sort of jumped through some of the points, but we will go through some extra questions now. All right, and go into Q&A. So for me to just wrap up, so we have classrooms. As teachers, we have classrooms. Keep control of them as best you can, and get help if you need it. All right. I see a whole bunch of questions already. So I'm going to go through all of these fun notes now. So hi guys from South Africa, Bulgaria, UK, Florida, Belgium, UK. Happy Saturday. So happy it's the morning or afternoon. US, Morocco. That's such fantasy people from all over the world. Ireland. Okay, here was that question I spotted earlier. How do we know that students don't use their phones in online lessons? I think they probably do. And if you find that they are not listening at all, the chances are that they are looking at something or playing a game even. Especially with online things, you can't always tell, but I would just look out for them. Maybe go, Dimitri, and ask a question. So keep asking them questions, sort of surprise them, get them to, if you think that person is not listening, then just ask some extra questions. Or even say, I have a feeling that people are on their phone. If that's true, please put up your hand, and then please put your phone away, because actually we are trying to learn something. Or maybe just come up with something surprising and say something strange and see if anyone's really listening. Say, I'm just going to set the monkeys free and see if anyone goes, what? If not, they might be on their phone. I think at this day and age, probably, unfortunately, it happens. So be on the lookout for it and just request. Say, please, I have a feeling you're on the phone. Can you please put it away now and concentrate? And do your best. From Malaysia, Italy, hi. Then I see some people chatting about assignments. Please, you all working? I've been marking assignments today, so we all work on the weekend. Good. All right. Passing. Okay, here we go. More and more people I know who do not teach their children to respect adults. That is, Catherine, that unfortunately is something. If you think about like Gen X and that kind of person and what older people were taught to do that was normal, and what Gen Z sort of is not normal, and millennials, not necessarily other people, and it's all good that children can't be punished in the same vile way that they could be punished in the past. There are young people do, to a large extent, not understand respect for adults in the same way. There's a classroom I walk into on a Wednesday afternoon, and as I open the door, they all rush. They push in front of me and rush in front. And the amount of times I have said, "Excuse me," and then the next week they do the exact same thing. So all we can do is try and say, I think that, explain the rules of hopefully not an archaic world, and say, you know, if someone is older than you, or your teacher, or your mother, or even your friends, have some respect and don't push in front of people. So I think we do need to call them out on it in a polite and respectful way on our behalf. But yes, I do agree that unfortunately, and I don't know where you live, but I think it is worldwide. I don't think that is one country. I think that is everywhere. Because the more you teach English to students from around the world, the more you realize that we're all pretty much the same. And unfortunately, the the same good things and the same bad things. It doesn't matter where you live. All right. Another thing on respecting. When teachers try to teach them to respect their teachers in class, when parents complain, so the teacher has no right to reprimand their child. Yes, that happens as well. I think reprimand is perhaps reprimand. Yes, I mean we do want to reprimand, but maybe if we suggest, and so we take it down a step. So instead of saying I will reprimand the children, we say I suggest that the students look at their behavior. So reword it, and those parents are probably going through the same that the teacher's going through at home, but those young people, students probably treat their parents in a similar way, unfortunately. But I think we have to change the language slightly. So we don't say reprimand, we just say suggest other behavior, and model other behavior as well. That you get some students to do it and say, this is the behavior we would like to see. So if you show it, then they can copy. Right. Catherine, I see that you are caught in some situation. What do we do if we find ourselves in such a situation? I would speak to the principal of your school and the other teachers. I would not gossip, but just for advice, and say, I'm having issues with this group of students, and does anyone have an idea on how to, engage them in a different way, that you sort of distract them away from the bad behavior? Just distraction is a good thing with younger students. So if you can distract students with a more exciting activity, just like you distract babies and get them to do something else, and you can distract cats and get them to do something else, distraction is a good thing. So if you can distract students from their bad behavior by giving them a more positive thing to do, I say this as if it always works. It might work. Distraction is a tool. But I also would, if it really is, it seems that it's something very serious, I would speak to the person who you, like the principal of the school, or someone, or the head teacher. I would speak to that person and speak about your grievances and ask for some advice on children that break. I say children, students, because these could be adults. Students that break the rules. Interesting. Very interesting question. Sometimes there are selfish adults who are unaware of their behavior, who dominate with endless questions and demands, and other students are irked about. How do you handle that? Very interesting question. Very interesting question. I think in a subtle way, I would maybe say, okay, so we've heard from Mary. Mary has answered our questions so well for the last half an hour. Peter, maybe you would like to cut in and tell us, what do you think? I would try and just spread it out. Spread it out. There will always be maybe an overachiever or just someone who wants the whole lesson to themselves. Or maybe just say, I don't know, if you have group work, maybe split the groups up in a different way, or try very hard to, well, don't ever stop. Don't ever stop and say, we're going to do a quick fire, just a 2-minute answer from each student. So maybe if you can get the time down a little, distraction in a completely different way. If you just get them to look at a different aspect of it. So instead of that student answering the question for 10 minutes, you say, we are each going to answer with 10 words, and then go, and I'll give each student a number. So we're going to go 1 to 10, and each student's going to give me 10 words. So distract, so that you can just try and spread the class out, that it goes to some of the other students get a chance. I'm thinking that's how I would do it. And also, distraction is a great tool for cats and students. But I also have had students who don't stop, and you don't want to interrupt them because that's it. But if you just set a different kind of a task that just sort of changes the energy and changes the rhythm of the class, that you sort of break the behavior slightly. I hope that is helpful. Tyrone or Tyrone, I hope that's helpful. Okay. Oh my word, yes, Leo. When a child is saying something inappropriate in a writing task or activity, how would you deal with it? Okay, in a writing task, in a way, it gives you a moment to get back to them later. Like in a speaking task, you could say, immediately, I'd say that is not appropriate speech, or that is not appropriate subject matter for that class, and we don't talk about that in this class. So thank you, we will leave that at that. Thank you. If it is in writing, I would say the same thing, but just say, I would not say it if it's in a writing task, the rest of the class don't necessarily know that. So I would go directly to the student and say, you mentioned things in your writing task that are not appropriate for this classroom, and going forward, I don't want to see that ever again. And if it continues again, I would go to someone in power, someone that you can talk to and say, the student is is talking about things that no one needs to talk about. If it's writing, you can take it, maybe say, I will speak to you at the end of the class. You don't have to bring it up then in front of any of the other students. You can just speak to that student later, because luckily, hopefully, no one else read what they were writing. Okay. I think I have got to the end of those questions, and we still have plenty of time. So I shall have some water and be ready and willing to. At the end of the lesson, while I'm going to go to the next slide, we have a survey monkey, and then at the end of the lesson, please stay a minute or two and just answer a few questions and give us some feedback on if the webinar was useful, if you learned anything, if you would like to see a webinar about a different topic or something that you really think that you would love to hear about, then give advice to us as well. So we will be very happy to hear it. But at the end of the webinar, I'll put that up again with the link. All right. So unfortunately, young people have, I think through social media, in some ways, they don't live in the world in as real a way as people did in the past, but they have been what the youth have seen on social media has made them old before their time and say terrible things. Okay, Georgie, thank you. An extra question for us. Okay. How do you deal with a colleague or colleagues or a supervisor who's breathing down your neck? Oh my goodness. Very good question. If it's just a colleague or colleagues, then you are on equal footing. Yeah, then you are all side by side. So I would maybe speak personally to that person one-on-one in a safe environment and in a friendly way and say, hey, you've been so interested in all of my lessons and what kind of lessons have you been doing? And sort of turn it around and ask and see why are they breathing down your neck? What do they want? So I would sort of gently try and see what they're after. If it's a supervisor, sometimes a supervisor needs to, it depends, and they need to watch a class so that they can give feedback to their supervisor. So it really depends. So if it's someone that you have to speak, that you have to answer up to, and it's, if it goes on and on, I'd say, is there an issue? Is there something we need to talk about? Can we can we have a dialogue about this? You could use that kind of, I would speak to speaking, get it out in the open. Not open, but speak to the person. Don't tell the world, but speak to your colleague or your colleagues and say, is there an issue? Ask questions, and the truth will set you free always. So ask questions, find out. The more you know, the better. And often, if you maybe that person actually thinks you're great, for instance, and they just want to see how you are doing so well in your class of adults, and they just want to see, so if you don't know, then you don't know. So I would ask questions and find out and talk. Be open. I always talk too much, but at least then you know what's going on. All right. Oh my word. So many hectic questions coming up. Okay. What should we do if students threaten violence? I had this once when I was a substitute teacher and sent the boy to the principal and spoke to him afterwards. What should we do if they don't listen? What you did was perfectly correct. So go to the principal and speak to him. If they don't listen, if it's really bad, then speak to the principal and then say, I am scared for violence towards the other students or to you. Then really say, I think we maybe need to get the police in on this. If they really are scary, then there's no messing around. Ask the principal to, bring in the law, because there's nothing cool about that. There's nothing okay. If they don't listen, I'd say it is not. You can't expect me to teach the student any longer when they're threatening me all the time. There's there's no way around, there's no like funny way around that. So I really would go back to the principal and say, this really needs to be dealt with, in no uncertain terms. From the other side, really, Daniel, what to do if corporal punishment is used at the school and I'm not comfortable with it? Now we're going back into the bad old days. It depends. I don't know what country you are from, but I mean that's the other side. So in many ways, the students get away with murder nowadays, but in some countries, then there's that, which is not cool either. Luckily, that was outlawed and stopped. I would let them know that you are not comfortable with it, and then if you have to punish someone, I mean, obviously, if you punish them and then they go and then they get beaten, that's terrible. So be perhaps more lenient in your punishment of students. So the student make the silly, the student missed a class, and maybe at that school rule, if you miss a class, you have corporal punishment, and maybe you keep it under the radar and say, I know you missed a class, but I understand. So maybe just in a gentle, quiet way, try not to punish your students and get them punished. So try not to send your students to be punished. I don't know if that is of any use to you. Go to the police. It's not normal. Completely. It's not cool. It has been outlawed in most countries, but I would imagine not every country in the world. In many countries, yes, but probably not every country. But yes, Catherine, I agree. It isn't normal. Okay. How to deal immediately with incident behavior in your classroom during the class and they do not listen to you. This is when you don't shout. Firstly, don't shout. Don't shout, as tempting as it would be. Don't shout. Sometimes the incident behavior leads to everyone else going, this can escalate very quickly to I didn't say, they said, I didn't. It's so loud and that you can't even get your head around it. I would just say, if you can be heard, often it is so loud. I would say, that is not acceptable. We will deal with this after the lesson. And perhaps get them to leave the class. If they're truly unpleasant, I don't know, find out what your school's policy on this is. But if they're really rude and they won't be quiet, like I've said, will you please be quiet and sit down? And they really are not listening, say, well, can you please leave the classroom and I will deal with you later, or send them to sit at the back or something. But I know that kind of student. I know that will not listen. So speak to the supervisors or the principal and see what you can do. But don't shout. As tempting as it is, don't shout. Just try and as best you can to just sort of quieten it down. Distraction. Or just say, it's so hot. I think we all need to open the window. And I don't know, that kind of thing to sort of bring the level of, sometimes the energy gets overwhelming. So, bring it back, calm it down and see if you can deal with it later. Often you can't deal with it in its entirety in the moment. So you have to deal with it later. So the best thing is to get everyone to calm down. And this is sounds like this is crazy. This is just teaching. It's such fun. All right, but I do know some kids, and they're not even necessarily being that vile, but it can escalate very quickly and just become a little bit that you cannot handle them. For years, and it still happens. All right. any use, but distraction. Okay. What do you notice if a student is being bullied by other students? A very, very good question. I would take notes quietly, see who the perpetrators are, and then also report it. This is not cool. It's not cool. So Heidi, take it, tell on. Go and tell someone. Tell someone that this poor child is being bullied and these kids or adults. I always say kids. I teach more kids than adults. That's why I go to kids. Just see who's doing it and go to a supervisor or a principal and see if you can within the class, just see if you can get that student quietly move, get the bully to move to a different seat. Say, everyone's going to swap the classroom around. You're sitting here, and get the child away from the bullies. And then, within the class, sort of calm it down, and then speak to other teachers and other principals, headmistresses, people such as that, to see what you can do about it. Because it's not cool at all. And yes, Catherine, you've obviously been through this. I really feel for you. I'd leave the school. I think I didn't take that question on in all of it, that if Daniel, you actually have to beat the child, that's like, no. I agree with Catherine here. Rather be unemployed than have to beat children and go to the police. Very completely. I was like, if that happens at your school, but if you actually have to beat the child, then no. So Daniel, yes, good. Sometimes a quiet or reflection space. Yes. Very Jada. Completely. I think we've chatted in a webinar before and you've had great advice for your fellow teachers. So yes, very nice. That's why I said calm it down. If you just get everyone take a deep breath in and out. And like just, sometimes it just needs to just be diffused. Diffuse the situation. Because you can't always deal with it in its, completely, but just that it's okay and move on to the next step. So more good advice here. Depending on the extent of the bullying, some of the police even have to get involved. Oh my word. I'm shocked. I am shocked by these terrible things that happen in the world. Oh my word. I always think I won't watch the horrible movies, but here it is in real life. Oh my goodness. But yes, if it gets to that extent, absolutely. If you can see it happening and it really is that awful, then that is the answer, or the only answer. And I don't think this is one country or another either. I think it is kind of thing that happens. And perhaps even this could even happen online as well, not even only in real one-to-one school classrooms. Oh my word. Does anyone have a nice story to say? Oh my goodness. Here's something. Having a fidget or a short form to fill out, online. Now, online also perhaps you work for a school, so also let the other teacher or principal know that this is not cool and that you've noted that this student is bullying this student. Always tell all the, don't keep it secret. I mean, not that you tell that you bring it up in class, but don't keep the incidents secret from other teachers and supervisors and the people who are in charge of the school. Tell everything. And Catherine, too many bad stories. Where are you teaching, Catherine? I'm just inquisitive now. English in. But there are bad things everywhere. And good things as well. Okay, here is a calmer. Okay, phone use during class could be very disruptive for the teacher and other students. Do you have any tips on how to deal with it? So if this is just, a regular, you're in a class, you could get a box and, right in the front of the classroom and say, this is not time for phones, everyone put your phone in the box. And in half an hour, you can have it back again. If it's online, as I said before, just try and spot the child and say, ask them a question when you think they aren't. If you think they are distracted by something else, try and bring them back by asking them a question. But it's one of those rules we mentioned right in the beginning that you have a classroom, you have rules. So make a cell phone rule. Yeah, obviously, we all want our cell phones, and we don't want the teachers to take them away from us. And kids need cell phones nowadays as well, so they know what time their mother's fetching them from school. So useful, but you have a box, you have a cell phone box, and as they come in, you say, put your phones here, and you get them as soon as you leave the class. So like just a simple rule. Or we turn them off now, and then everyone turns it off, and then put them in front of the desk. So come up with a rule, or they put them on front of the front of the desk, or somewhere where you make a rule, and it could be a fun rule. Okay, thank you, Leo, for the advice. Thank you for your questions. And I do think we are just teachers, just teachers, and most of the time it will just be someone who's just being a bit annoying or just doesn't stop talking, and we could even have been those students a million years ago. So most of the time it's fine, and if it ever gets horrible, then it is not your job as a teacher to take it on your own. You're part of a team that it's your job to bring the problem to light and have it dealt with. It's not your problem. I mean, it's not on your head to deal with problems all alone. So if there are things with bullying and violence and corporal punishment, it's not your job to be in charge. Just make sure that people know about it and that it gets dealt with. It gets dealt with. You don't have to deal with it on your own. Okay, there were some harrowing stories. I'm now thinking of my group that just push me out the way coming into the class. It's like, that's fine, that's fun. Keep on doing it. Here's some advice. Let's explain to my students how phones can be bad for them to some extent, and they were pretty open to it. But even if your phone untouched for a week, she was relaxed afterwards. There's my daughter, who is 17. She saw a thing, I'd never seen it. The thing that it tells you how long you've spent on the phone, and she saw that she had been on her phone for like 8 hours or something. And she was like, I wasted all that time. I think it's just if your phone's on, so it wasn't really 8 hours, but she actually deleted YouTube for a while because she was like, I'm wasting my life. So I think that is, and also the blue light, and then you can't sleep, and all of that stuff that is pertinent. So very nice. But thanks, Catherine. That's a nice happy piece of news from you. I hope that everyone has a great week of teaching for the next webinar. I hope that we have discussed some things and that I had some things that were useful to say. I always enjoy this. I enjoy chatting. I enjoy learning from other teachers how things go around in the world, and I hope that it's been of some use. So thank you so much for joining us and chatting about this. I'm going to go to the next slide, the one with the survey monkey link on it. And good luck with your assignments this week. And I'm going to put copy and paste it into the thing at the bottom here as well. Good luck with your teaching. Good luck with your studying. Good luck with your students. And most of the time it's fun. Most of the time they are great, and we have fun. These are some horror stories from around the world that obviously do happen, but most of the time I think we all have fun and enjoy it. So thank you, and have feedback, and good morning, good evening, good night. So thank you, everyone. All right. Bye.